Okay, so let's kind of talk about the concept of the idea of a tip, right?
Oh yeah, she's fired up.
Yeah, I had it in the last class. Okay, so let's talk about tips in general. So this is a part of that fifth section that we're on, that we're looking at tips and piecework wages. So tips in general, if we're discussing that, one of the examples I gave yesterday with the idea of receiving a tip if you're a waiter or waitress, it's on top of your pay. Nowadays, laws have changed where if you are a waiter or waitress, and that's what you claim on your W-2, you do have to report up to a certain amount of money that you make in tips. You do have to report that now. Not all of it. I think it's up to $250 or something like that if you're making tips. Everything else is just cash at the top because they understand you are making tips. Okay? So it's something that you have to file on your taxes, and you have to have documentation of it. So
tips?
Of tips, yeah. So that's a new part of taxes. It's just something you should be aware of if you're going into that profession. So now for tips, even if you're working a normal wage, so your hourly rate is really small. Let's say it's let's go $5.30 now. I think I did $5.25 yesterday. Say $5.30, and you're going to work a full 40-hour work week. You're working 40 hours this week. Now the tips you're getting. So the tips that are involved here. Maybe on Monday you get $25. Wednesday you get 30. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday you get 62. On Thursday you made 20. Slow day, and then Friday you made $100. Big tip. Obviously, you should always be documenting that, especially if you're reporting for taxes. You should always keep track and keep receipts for all of that, for all the wages you're getting and what dates they are, so that you can organize. Because a lot of people always forget, like taxes. If you're audited for taxes, they go back 7 years. 7 years, and they look at all of your taxes and all the numbers, and you have to have documentation for everything up to 7 years. And they pick people at random for that. So it's one of those things, like for my job, it's super easy. I have my W-2, seriously, like that's it. Like I don't have really any other expenses. So my job is really easy. My documentation is like, here it is. Like I don't even have to do anything. But if you're a waitress, you have to keep like tabs of your tips each day, like, and you have to have like actual like written out documents for all that stuff. Like they could be at the end of the butt if you're going back a couple of years. But calculating what your total wages would be, $5.30 plus, $5.30 times the 40 hours. So this is what your wages would be on the normal hours, because you have to get paid per hour. It could be really small, it could be low numbers. They don't have to pay minimum wage if you're a waitress or waiter, so keep that in mind. There is a minimum wage to it. I don't know the law on that yet. I'll tell you that when in class. Okay, so your wages for that week, normal, without tips, is $212 for a 40-hour work week. Then your tips on top, you just add the tips in. So you're adding the 25, the 30, the 62, the 20, and the 100. You're actually making more money in tips than your actual wages, which is pretty much normal. You're making $237 in tips, and then you'll add those two together. So your final total for your wages here is $237 plus the $212, and you're making $449 every week. Questions with the tip idea? Okay, one of the things I brought up yesterday is how do you calculate a tip? So let's say you have your bill. Okay, this is your receipt for your bill for your food. Okay, sometimes they call it gratuity, but so you have your food, your drink, your tax. Tax percent is 7% in the state of Iowa, that kind of thing. So let's say your food came out to be $8.95. Your drink was $1.25. So if you add those two together, So if you add the two costs of whatever your food is, so what is that, $8.95 plus your $1.25, you're at $10.20. $10.20. You calculate your tax on that, so times 0.07. Tax is about 72 cents. So how you calculate tax, you take your $10.20, you take it times 0.07, that's tax rate in Iowa. For cents, you always move the decimal over 2 spots. So it's 72 cents, and you add those together, so your total for this bill that the waiter or waitress would provide you is $10.92. Now, here's the thing. Tips. Totally optional, right? Comes down to your personal style, what you want to do. I always have that understanding when I go to a restaurant, I understand that I'm going to tip. I think there's perfectly good reason to not leave a tip every now and then. I'm not that person that's like, my food is just a hair off from what I'm expecting. If you're being treated rudely, I would talk to the manager first, and then you don't need to leave tip. It's not required. So it comes down to just personal preference. I always understand that they have a hard job. I understand that. And sometimes it's not their fault. It's it could be just the cooks. It could be the number of people in there. But the idea is that whatever your bill is, my rule of thumb is that whatever the number is, I always take times 20%. I give a 20% tip. That's a minimum. That's just, I understand that going in, that I'm going to leave a 20% tip. That for some people that's way too generous, but I don't think it is, especially because you're not cooking the food. They're serving you. They're bringing everything to you. I think it's more than fair. I think sometimes they deserve more money than that. But 20%. So if I'm leaving a 20% tip, here's the easiest way to calculate it. That's no joke. This is what I would do seriously in my head. Double this number. Like what's 10 if you doubled it? 20, and just move the decimal over. So if you take $20 and move the decimal over, it's $2 tip. Like seriously, double it and move the decimal. So if you can double numbers really fast in your head, you know what your tip is. Now obviously it's $10.92 that I'm doubling. So this is actually 4.18 carry 1. That's a 1, and that's 2. So it's actually, if I double $10, it's actually 21. But I've moved my decimal over. I'm actually leaving a $2.18 tip. Like that is the easiest way I can teach you how to leave your tip on the table. Double your cash, move the decimal. It's $2. If your bill was $14, instead of $10. If your bill was $14 for the bill, you double it, it's 28, and you just move the decimal over 1 spot, so you leave $2.80. Easiest thing in the world. Like you don't even need a calculator for it. So just keep that in mind. That's the easiest way. I always find it funny when people can't leave a tip, like they don't understand how to do that. Now I'm the person who just leaves a 20% tip. Some people leave 15, some people leave 10. It's kind of up to you. Does that make sense? Like how to leave tips really quick? Double. Okay. Someone did it. Okay. The door's been opening and closing, so I figured that had to be somebody opening that. All right. Now here's the thing. Just so you are aware of this, anytime you look at your bill and they put gratuity on there. Anyone happen to know what gratuity means? No. Gratuity means thanks. It's a tip already added. You don't need to leave an extra tip. There's some businesses that they automatically require you to leave a gratuity tip. You need to read your receipt to see if it's already been added to your bill. Sometimes the bottom of the bill will say no gratuity added. That means they didn't add a tip yet. So some bills say gratuity was 10% or 20% by default. They are supposed to warn you if gratuity is automatically included in the bill. I think by law they have to warn you of that. I've definitely been in a place where if you have a very big party that you go into a restaurant with, like a family gathering, if there's more than 10 people, they'll automatically add gratuity. automatically. Just because it's that many people, they just expect it. It's easier than trying to do tips per person. So just keep that in mind on your bill. If they say gratuity is 15 cents or $2.18, that's the tip. You don't need to leave an extra tip. They've already added everything in there for you. Now the thing that they're assuming though is what percent they're getting. Think about that. When you leave a tip, you get to choose, right? 10%, 15%, 20, I do 20. You can leave whatever you want. If you don't want to leave it, then it's up to you. But when they put gratuity on the bill, they've already assumed what it is. There are some businesses now, they don't even let you think about it. They'll put options, like 10% is this price, 20% is this price, and you just circle the one you want to give. Like they feel like they just make it mindlessly easy for you. But I think the easiest concept is like 20%. Just multiply by 2. All right, questions with the tips idea. We feel comfortable with that concept? We're gonna do some examples of that probably Monday, and you'll get homework on that. You'll have to leave a tip on a certain thing, know how much that is. So, all right. Last thing today that I want to talk about is piecework functions, or piecework wages. So let's talk about the piecework. So, piecework is when you get paid per item produced. So, let's do an example of piecework. So one of the examples I think I gave yesterday is like Larson Manufacturing. They pay 15 cents per item produced, and you're going to produce 200 items for that that shift that you're doing that day. Maybe you're only working a couple hours that day, and you're going to produce 200 items. Well, then what you do is you take 15 cents times your 200 items. You're making $30 that, maybe that hour or two. So you multiply those together. So this is the price per item produced, and you're keeping track of how many items you're actually producing. Now, in manufacturing, it could be just a part. It could be welding, if you're in welding. Maybe it's how many items you welded that day. They usually, in like a business like that, they would provide you a counter, so you don't have to keep track in your head, like you just physically place something on your person, or you have like a little button on the floor that you push, and it keeps a running tab of what you're actually doing. But yeah, so it's pretty easy. The example I brought up yesterday, though, was my father was a truck driver, right? He used to drive trucks for a living. And the idea is that they pay per mileage. So they pay 20 cents per mile. So if you're a truck driver, so he gets paid, driver, there we go. He gets paid per run. So like they automatically calculate like if he goes out to, you went out to New Jersey a lot, he delivered stuff for Wood Harbor. They deliver cabinetry, and they would pay him an upfront fee of like what his delivery would be. So like it didn't matter how many days it would take him. He got like $1,400 to go deliver these cabinets that week. So if he could be back in 3 days, it was $1,400 for 3 days. Like that's just what they pay. So it just depends on how long you want to take to get out there. They would cover the gas, which is kind of nice, but they also paid him per mile, which is like crazy. So you're thinking, okay, you're getting a $1,400 delivery fee. So $1,400. And the idea is that they're going to pay him also 20 cents per mile. So what he would do is he would reset his odometer on his truck. So his odometer is the thing that keeps track of the mileage. He'd reset his trip meter. He'd drive out there and back, and then they would pay him 20 cents per mile, and he'd log everything in his books. So let's say, I'm just going to give you an idea. In fact, I'm going to type this in. Garner, Iowa to New Jersey. So Garner to New Jersey roughly is a 1,000-mile trip. That's 1,200 miles. And I'm not typing any specific town. So that was to go out there and back, or out there, just straight out there. It's 1,200 miles. So he'd go out there, and then he'd also come back 1,200 miles. And so you're actually going 2,400 miles total on the actual semi. And you take that times 20%. So they're 20 cents per mile. So 20 cents, just like the percent, you double your number, you move the decimal point over, so 2,400 times 0.2, you're getting $480 per mile. So $480 for all the miles that he drove. And that's on top. So if he know he's making $1,400 for that trip, he can add the $480 for the mileage he drove. So now he's at $1,880 for that one trip. Now, the thing is that most people won't think about is that if you're a professional truck driver, okay, you can only go certain speeds on the road. You're limited in certain states to a certain max speed. The fines, if you were to go over the speed limit, are I think double or triple what normal speeding tickets are for truck drivers because they're considered a professional. If you get so many strikes in your driving, you lose your license for a certain amount of months, like automatically. It's not like that you're doing something wrong. It's like you got a speeding ticket like 3 times in a row, you lose your driving license for a month, and it's 6 months, then it's a year, and then it's 12 years. Like it's like a long time because they're considered professional. Well, they're limited to how many hours they can drive in a day. That's something that a lot of people don't know. It's like now they have shifts where you can drive for 10 hours at a time. Like that's a max, 10 hours at a time, and they have to take a mandatory 12-hour break. And then they can drive 10 hours and take a mandatory 12-hour break. So like in that idea, like maybe this isn't the best cost efficiency. You're thinking, okay, $400 over there and back, I can be back in a couple days. The thing is, like, think about this. That is a 18-hour trip, according to Google and using highways. It's 18 hours going there. So that means he can drive for 10 hours. He has to take a break for 12 hours. So this is his break. He can drive for another 8 hours and he's there. Right? Does that make sense? So right there, he's already at day 2. This is, this right here is 22 hours. That's almost one full day. And now he's in day 2. Well then, he's there. He has to drive 10 hours back, take his 12-hour break, and another 8 hours. So this might be 2 days and 2 days. So it'd take him maybe 3-4 days. In theory, if he's just kind of like guesstimating numbers, 3-4 days to make that type of money. You're probably thinking, well, that's not too bad, actually. But maybe in the job you're looking at, maybe there's more higher pay. So it's like these are things that he would do constantly. He'd constantly figure out if that's the trip he wants to take. He gets to choose the trips and what the pay is. But it's one of those things like once you see kind of the benefits for doing that, yeah, you can make some serious money. Now if he's making that per week, okay, let's say that's his week where he worked, right? $1,400, and he's working 50 weeks of the year. $1,400, 50 weeks a year. He's making 70 grand driving a truck. I don't know too many jobs around here that can pay 70 grand without having an education. He didn't have any education, right? But, so it just kind of makes you wonder, it's like, I mean, especially if you can handle that type of job and stress level. And he has to, be in that truck, and he had so many licenses that he had to have. So, in certain states, he has to meet certain protocols for how much weight he can have, and he has to be constantly aware of the state he's traveling into, what the speeds have to be. Like he has to be he's on the ball. So, and the weird part is he did this for 40 years of his life. So I mean, obviously his pay increased substantially. I mean, his first jobs were not that expensive, but kind of makes you wonder, like the idea, like the different jobs that are out there. Might be a profession you're interested in, maybe it isn't, but it was one of those things that it's interesting because he is actually getting paid piecework, because he's getting paid for that. Okay, questions with any of the topics I've discussed today? Okay, that's it today. Pretty easy. No homework, nothing like that. I'm giving you the day off.